Hey, what's up, guys? Pillow King here. I just kind of wanted to talk about the state of Yu-Gi-Oh from like an outside looking in perspective. I play currently mostly online right now because I'm waiting for things to come in the mail, and also while I kind of decide what I want to play, if I want to play Cash Tier, all that good stuff. But I kind of just wanted to talk a little bit about how I feel about the game, and I feel like it's generally declining. And you're free to tell me if I'm wrong, especially for people who stayed in during the whole, how do I say, tier format. Yeah. I feel like tier was one of the greatest decks ever, which also caused a lot of people to leave, and majority of them aren't coming back. And that's like a really big issue that Yu-Gi-Oh is going to continue to have now. Is I feel like there's two ways we can they will go about it. Either they have to make decks that are just weaker in general, or they have to keep making decks that are more powerful. And it feels like they're going in the direction of just making decks like significantly more powerful. And I think that's part of the problem. For example, we have Cash Tier now. Now, if you took out the board locking presence, Cash Tier wouldn't be as big of a problem. It would just be similar to Zoo, where it was really easy to make your boss monster, and the boss monster in this case would be a Dryden. Now it's also a macro, but a Dryden Pass, which it's also a macro, which is the bigger problem. And the macro also happens to trigger the other boss monster that they have that causes his unlocking, which is the bigger problem. I feel like with how Yu-Gi-Oh is going, we're gonna have a lot of problems with the game keeping up. And what I mean really is so it's pretty generally known that board breakers are now the better way to go. Most people are just playing board breakers, and now we're seeing other cards that are good, like enemy controller, chalice, things like that pop up in people's main decks. We're main decking Book of Eclipse because that's one of the real only ways to deal with the Cash Tier board directly. Now we're forced to sort of main stuff like Dark Ruler evenly, Book of Eclipse, just to hope we don't automatically lose to locking every single zone out, as you guys saw at the YCS where he got every single zone locked out. And that happened unfortunately to a lot of people, and it sucks, but that's the current state of Yu-Gi-Oh. It feels like other decks can do well. As you saw, Labyrinth Branded was doing really solid, and I feel like they both have pretty solid Cash Tier matchups, but having Cash Tier go first almost feels like an auto lose. And and I'm saying this because I've played against it a lot. My friend who really loved it, and I don't know if he was the first one to really say it, but I remember him like pretty early on being like, board breakers is the way to go. And so I feel like he had a pretty good idea of the deck. I feel like stuff like this is just going to keep making people not want to play, where now the point is to not let your opponent play. Tier did it in a different way, where your turn was also their turn. So if you went like second playing Tier, you had Havness. Havness basically gave you a way to always play on your opponent's turn. It's not guaranteed, but more times than not, you ended up playing a lot on your opponent's turn. You ended up doing almost your whole combo, which also resulted in disruptions, and that doesn't include other disruptions they might have, like Ash Imperm if they played it. And then when Photon Hypernova came out, now we also have Tier Elements Cash Tier, which was literally just another Havness. And I was a little salty, if I'm being honest, because I had just bought the deck. I was like, oh, they're going to hit the deck, but it won't be too bad. I thought, like, Kit to, being banned, and I'm like, okay, it is what it is. Nah, they just destroyed the deck. Fairly so, because we looked at the OCG, and they hit so many cards in that deck, and the deck was still playing. King of the Swamp and shit was letting you still make Rucalcos. It was nuts. And I think it's still the best deck as of the time I'm making this video. And I think there's only like a couple ways that the game can really keep going, and I'm worried about the longevity of the game. And I say this because based off how it's going right now, it feels like maybe we'll only have like an extra 10 to 20 years, which sounds like a lot when you put it like that, but in reality that's not a lot at all. With, like, for example, like with Magic, they've been going since I think the 80s or 90s. And I think it's because they've always kept it relatively simple. And they also have like a million different formats, but I digress. But I feel like, and like I said, tell me what you guys think, but I feel like hitting board breakers to 1, like almost all the good board breakers, and I say, and I don't even know about floodgates yet. I've been kind of thinking about this for a bit, but I feel like hitting the board breakers to 1 and maybe hitting like the best hand traps to 1 would help slow the game down a bit. And they also kind of need to stop making all these powerful archetypes, because ever since like Cosmo, and I'm using this specifically, it's one thing. Cosmo set the standard for insanely good field spells, especially back then because we didn't have Cyclone. Like you had MST. If you MST the Cosmo field spell, oh, they just got another one back, or they searched whatever they needed. That Cosmo field spell did 3 different things, and that was crazy. And then it gave us a precedent of insanely powerful field spells. And from there, the game just kind of kept moving forward. Like, we have all these crazy powerful decks that are coming out. Zoo, True Draco, which in itself, it's a trap deck. But it was the second best deck to Zoo, which is crazy because they were both super powerful decks. I preferred True Draco over them. That was just because I didn't really want to play Zoo, which I could have played either. We had all of it at the time, but that wasn't really the issue. But Zoo, I feel like, and like even Necros set like a standard, in my opinion. And Duelist Alliance format really was it also, but that Necros is when I started playing meta. So Necros, for me at least, I feel like set a standard for what decks need to be. They need to not let your opponent play, and it feels like from there, it was just horrible. And same thing, if I say it like that, you can make the argument for like Sylvan. I think it was Sylvans, or like even Necros did it, where they made chain, put the card on the top of their deck, so they would draw vanities, and then you vanities lock them. That's not fun. That's not fair. And it feels like that's where this game is going now, to where we have the goal was to just not let your opponent play at all. And the game, it has to go one of 2 ways, and the latter is the way we need to go, in my opinion, for the game to stay relevant. Because we were at a point where Yu-Gi-Oh was having the most amount of people we've ever had, which is phenomenal, and I'm very happy about it. But we lost a lot of people because of tier. No one wanted to really play, and obviously the really good players stayed. But if all the really good players stayed, I don't think that's enough for the game to just last. I feel like people are gonna move to other games because you don't have to deal with bullshit like that. Most people universally agree that Yu-Gi-Oh is the most complicated card game out of all the card games you currently have. A lot of people I saw were moving to Pokemon, moving to Magic. One Piece is now super popular, so is Digimon. But like I was saying before, I'm a little worried for the longevity of the game, because either Konami has to make decks equally powerful to what we currently have, or more powerful, and continue to hit the current decks, or they have to just, I think, do a massive hit. And this is what I think should be done. They need to do a massive hit on all cards like Board Breakers, and maybe hand traps. I'm still on the fence about that, but hit all these cards and start dumbing down the power of the decks. If we dumb down the power of the decks, it avoids. I'm not saying let's go to fucking GOAT format, but what I'm saying is we need to kind of take a step back from locking your opponent completely out of the game, or having 20 to 30 minute turns, not 30 minute turns, but 15-20 minute turns, like how Tier was doing. I like Labyrinth right now. I think I don't like, to be honest, I hate the fact that that deck is so good. It's a really fun deck to play, in my opinion. I like almost all the decks we have right now. I like Cash to an extent. Brand is pretty fun. Trap Tricks is sneaking its way in there now that the structure deck's out. But I feel like we're just at a point with Yu-Gi-Oh where it's getting dangerously close to the line of either it's gonna last or it's not, and I hope they just don't ruin the game with what they're doing. I think that's all I really have to talk about. There are some positives right now. I feel like they are making it a little more cheaper for everybody. With sets like, Magnificent Mavens, I think is what it's called, and reprinting some of the more expensive cards. It's really helping a lot of people. You know, you have cards like Pot of Prosperity going for above 100 a piece. Now, you know, you can get it's cheaper. It's 100. It's 50 a piece, which is, you know, you cut it by 50%. And you know, we got a Baron reprint coming. I know there's another card that's like Guardian Chimera. You know, it helps. I don't expect I don't expect the game to be like super cheap. At the end of the day, it's a hobby. But I do like how Pokemon handles that. You know, this is a little off topic, and you know, for those of you who want to click off here, you know, obviously do it if you want. But I like how Pokemon handles things. You know, you get high rarity and low rarity cards. They don't get reprints often, but they have, like, you can get a whole deck for about, like, the best deck right now is, I think it's like $120. In Yu-Gi-Oh, you're paying, with assuming you have staples, on the upwards of like 300 to 600 depending on what deck you're getting, and that's just for the best deck. Now I'm talking about cash specifically. Like when I bought tier, I think I spent like 400 roughly, and that was shortly before the list, and that was all from TCG, by the way. Obviously if I looked online I could have maybe got a better deal, but that's a whole different thing. But I do like for example, I went and played Pokemon for a bit. I still like it. I just had stuff happen to where I didn't have the time to play it. I spent 45, maybe 50. I don't even think it was 50. I think it was like 45. I spent $45, and I went and won a box tournament. Got a box, and then I also won another box. So just from that $45 investment, I won about like $250 worth of Pokemon product. Just from that one small investment there, and it wasn't even the best deck. It was nowhere near the best deck. You know, the deck was like a counter pick, I guess, and it was the Reggies. I really like the Reggies. I think they're all really cool, and I would still play it, actually. I don't know how it is right now, but I would probably still play it if I had the opportunity. But, you know, to summarize the video, I really do think Yu-Gi-Oh can still last a long time, like how Magic can. But I feel like there's a lot of things we need to fix. We need to make the game a bit more budget friendly. We need to decrease the power and do a massive hit. They probably won't do a massive hit because board breakers aren't really a problem as of right now. I think if they want to keep the game going, they do need to hit these cards, but they need to do a long hit and stop increasing the power that they're giving these decks, and instead, you know, decrease them. We do have a lot of archetypes that can potentially be more powerful if this does happen, and I think that would really help a lot of people. You know, and I'm sure people find dumb combos, but that's what the ban lists are. We need, like, you know, more consistent list as well. You know, they give us a generalized time, and that itself is also a problem. There's a lot of problems Yu-Gi-Oh has right now, between time, ban lists, issues with product. There's a million things that I could talk about. If you guys want to hear more about what I have to say about Yu-Gi-Oh, go ahead and let me know. If you guys disagree or agree with me, also let me know. You know, I always like to see other people's opinions, and I like to talk about it. Let me know in the comments down below. You can join my Discord server. There's a bunch of people there as well. We can all talk about it. And if you guys don't subscribe, go ahead and subscribe. It supports the channel. I try to make consistent content, but life does get in the way due to my health, unfortunately. So I try to, you know, do what I can. I'm going to start having videos a little more consistent. I have some stuff going on, but it does take a bit to edit these videos because I like to try a little bit harder when I make videos I actually really enjoy. But this is just something I felt like I needed to talk about because I hate the idea of seeing the game I've enjoyed since I was literally in middle school kind of dying. And I've spent a lot of time playing this game. I've been relatively successful. I'm not saying I haven't won a YCS or anything, but I feel like I have a pretty good idea of how the game works and all that good stuff. But yeah, have a wonderful day.